and our gratitude to all of those, and particularly Mr. John Dotter, who has brought us together here today. I wish to read you two excerpts of very important people first. Lindsay Robb, in Altius Citius Longius. We have lost that essential unity with the soil. The break in this relationship is first indicated in the disregard for spiritual values and sense of obligation and obedience to the creative powers of the universe. And Robert Graves, in a lecture to the Massachusetts Institute titled The Defense of Human Culture, the decline of a true taste for food is the beginning of a decline in a national culture as a whole. When people have lost their authentic personal taste, they lose their personality and become the instruments of other people's wills. Biodynamics is a word used by Rudolf Steiner as a vision in living. One of the great facets of that vision is the whole study of agriculture and horticulture. Let us say that all horticulture is the basis of agriculture. Nobody can perform agriculture unless they completely understand horticulture, for there is no difference whatever between the two, and it is ridiculous to pretend that there is. Horticulture is and always has been a craft. It is the great art. It is the only art which is not artificial. All the rest are toys of the nursery. Within horticulture is the whole scene of man's marriage with all other living things in the world. And this implication means a reverence and obedience to the laws that govern the whole of that man. For man does not create or make any of those living things, but he has the purposes and delights of living with them, utilizing them, magnifying them, and, in his own sense, of destroying them. The vision of biodynamics in agriculture and horticulture is the great science, the knowledge of the understanding of the operation of those laws of God. One of the enormities is that there is nothing modern about this system. It is as ancient, and it is as vast and far into the future as it is ancient and ancient. And that the whole basis of these systems, techniques, and methods have come from antiquity, from the ancient Chinese, wherein we have histrionic records, through the Phoenician, the Egyptian, the Golden Age of the Greek, right up to the great cultures of the continents of the world, particularly through Italy and France, into the enormous classic cultures, gathering knowledge, and putting it together, and maintaining a perpetual motion of enchanting and exquisite culture. The whole of this approach has been the foundation of a propagation of man's further image of culture within himself, an uplift. That the importance within this area is very unquestionably the word approach. Why we put our foot upon the soil, why we should enter a gate and make a garden, why we should enter a field and build produce. The whole reason behind it is the instant result of what will take place, possibly forever. And this is the whole matter. For no garden and no farm is for money. Neither is it for us. It cannot be. It is total. It belongs in eternity. And it belongs with nature. It is, unquestionably, in all cases, for totality. And the whole magic that concerns what comes out of this approach is that instead of saying, I will take this and get so much out of it, in which case, every fool will. You may take 20 acres and say, I will get $20,000, and you will. That's exactly what you will get, and it amounts to nothing. But you will take 1 acre and enter it with the vision of reverence and obedience of the laws of nature, and you will get a cornucopia that will never cease to flow, like the vast river. And you will have produce and production, not in edible quantity, but in happiness and creativity too. The whole of this is a symbol that every living thing is in this world, not by us, that it must somewhere have a regard and a consideration. And the vision behind Rudolf Steiner's attitude in this is the matter of relationship and disrelationship, for and against, black and white, hot and cold, summer and winter, even to the extent of good and bad. The balances that are within nature. In the whole herb world is a herb for every matter that concerns man. The whole image of the Golden Age was the participation and the taking of food, not of course, for physical feeling, but for spiritual vision, as well as food. And herein is the whole scene of the moral code of the influence of herbs. That every part of the anatomy is connected with planets, and that every herb is governed by a planet or planets. And that there is not a single part of the body or a single herb that does not have a relationship and a disrelationship. If your hair is falling out, there is a herb that will put the matter right. If your eyesight has gone or is going, there are herbs that will restore this matter. If your heart is troubled and out of balance, there are herbs. If you have an ache in a limb or a broken bone, there are herbs. What other matter has there ever been? It was the Greeks who discovered that the willow was their aspirin, and that's what the aspirin is today. And the Digitized for the heart, and the saturator. And you must realize that tansy is a disrelator in conjunction with those relators. Tansy is one of those magical herbs that reduces the appetite, and so it is eaten and left. Tansies were little cakes made with tansy to stop you wanting to eat, and gave resuscitation to stand over the period of Aostro or Easter and Lent. And so the whole world of hers is a magical director, a relator and a disrelator, not only with man, but with every single living thing in the world, with slugs and snails, and aphids and leaves, and birds and animals, and ants. They are all magical creatures, beloved by children, and must somewhere have the regard. For we cannot say this area of nature is taken from the world and given to us for us, and everything is to keep out, for it is impossible. For soil itself, and air and water, is the constitution of totality. It is dead butterfly wings. It is the skulls of animals. It is the live sand that falls off the face of rocks, and the exquisite leaves that they mold. And all of them are the constitution of soil and air and water. And there is no difference between any of those except our absurdity of names. Soil is as delicate as the most delicate plant. It is bruised, damaged, and destroyed with the utmost ease. And we approach it like humans. We jump on it, run enormous weights upon it, and destroy it, because of selfishness. The whole attitude of biodynamics is in no way negative. It is not in any case saying to anybody, you must not use machinery, you must not use chemicals. It is nothing connected with this at all. It is completely disinterested in that. It is completely positive. It is reverence and obedience for the total laws by which everything in this world is ever lived. And it is an understanding and a knowledge of that enormous, unending matter. Therefore, it is utterly positive. And all biodynamic gardens and farms cannot be but an immense symbol of this Hesperides. And as a symbol, it is in itself sufficient to be its educator. And I would suggest the enormous importance of parents with children, with education. Is not the whole law of the garden and of nature married together the very initial basis of the whole vision of education? Is it not parents holding the children's hands in all of these magical matters which are undiscussable, which are visionary? For everything that is total is of the invisible. And that it is of greatest import that parents should take by the hand children into the garden, lead them into the magics of the garden, the effects of the magics of the garden, which no human being of themselves can instill into any soul. But that the very soul of an individual must find the soul of totality in all the subjects that it is dealing. Thereupon it will be born and be real in each individual, out of which will form a classicality, and each individual will become a person of static culture and classicism, and build a humanity. That at no time should we or could we divorce children from the whole study that comes out of life and God, the magics of it. That for 25 years, 50 years, and 100 years is nothing in the creation of the magic of God. And that all the produce, all that is required of a family, can with the utmost ease be grown in the smallest space. And is it not of great importance that we should have a knowledge of the labor and the productivity and the magics of all the matters that we deal with? Is it not important that all our food should be vital, that it should be spiritual food as well as physical food, and that it should have all the vitalities of the environment that we live in, that it should not be shipped for hundreds of miles, dried up in cases and tins and frozen to degrees of insanities whereby it contains nothing but appearance, but synthetic. And in this we have a huge lesson in the herbs, which are vital, for all plants are herbs. And without this living with the garden, which is part of the whole, we lose the whole concept of the word vision. So whether it is a communal garden, or great gardens for masses of people, or individual gardens, makes no difference whatever. But that the whole basis of a garden is the great provisionment that is required physically, but beyond the whole of that, the vision of that matter which is eternal. And all gardens must have in them the basis of this construction of landscape. That you must have all the wonderful plants, all the flowers and vegetables and fruits, and be overwhelmed with the joy and the pleasure and the sustenance of them, and the influence of the herbs as medical care. But beyond the whole of this must always be built into the garden the via, the clairvoyance, the clear vision, leading as a pathway for the eye through the garden, out over the hedge, into the forest, over the mountains, into the stars forever. And should it not be perhaps now, on this very portentous day when we meet here, that we set up this reverence, this obligation to the obedience of the enchantment of the whole law of God in nature. That the members here, numerous, will lead gardens and children and people, for 2-year-old and 100-year-old are all as equal belonging in the garden, in the enjoyment and the magic of it. And shall we not perhaps form this very day a procedure, a wave of culture that will re-enter life as a positive leadership of that which is joy, happiness, and reverence. I couldn't think otherwise. The ancient Chinese 5,000 years did, and as the planetary system is a participation of the whole law of nature, and the whole world of plants and of moisture is responsive to the cycles of the planets, there can be no question of the matter. Yes is the answer. And transplanting with the declination of the moon, and the sowing of seeds with the inclination of the moon, in conjunction with the inclination and declination of the sun. I have to look it up. It certainly could. Yes. It is essential to work out a mathematical table of the propagative period of the seed or plant that you're operating with. You have to remember that the inclination of the sun makes a variation of the propagation of the seed, as well as the moon. The moon influence is 8 times and the sun's influence is 1/9 as an approximation.
Is there a book which spells all this out?
Is there a book by which you can be a master painter? Is there a book by which you can be a master musician? And here we're dealing with the law of God, totally. How could there be? Yes, there could. There could. I would tell you that Messrs. Dutton of New York are demanding this and keep writing letters, but it hasn't got anywhere. We feel, to tell you the truth in the answer to that, we feel at the moment we have an enormous number of student apprentices who are studying the whole of this system and technique, working on the land with us to become teachers, managers of this system. We feel that our focuses should be given to these people, that they should pass it on as all real matters are passed on. Our fairy stories ever really written, they cannot be written. So there is no book. I feel that if there were a book, you would have to spend your whole life reading it, and then you wouldn't get into the garden at all. As regards relationships and disrelationships of plants, insects, deep-rooted, shallow-rooted, the different constitutions of soils, the effects of herbs into manufacture of compost in the soils as individuals, the effect of numerous composts and such like matters, and fertilizations, yes, there could indeed be an almanac. And I think it's very probable that even certain almanacs are beginning to come out now. However, you have to realize that when there has been a huge commercial, industrial era, the only thing known today are the photographs of 60-ton machines and of chemical residues. Therefore, the other has been overlooked. It has to come back with a new way. Welcome them with a back view. Yes, there are endless controllers. There are endless controllers. The deer cannot tolerate certain plants. If you use them either as hedges or plants, you also have to realize that out of the whole of this matter of herbal and plant relationship and disrelationship, you cannot think of it as the use today of medical syringes that give you a cure for your immediate complaint and produce 3 more. You have to realize that it's a slow procedure of bringing about change. That at no time do you destroy because you cannot understand. Therefore, you bring about the usage of plants. Euphorbias is one, Ricinus is another. If you plant a hedge of, what is the, pyracantha, I can't think what you call it, common name for pyracantha. Firehole. Now, if you make a hedge of that, there is also in California a wild deer plant that no deer will either go through or touch. All of these matters used as hedges. Also, you do know that noises frighten deer more than most other matters. Also, they cannot stand the smell of bone meal. If you use a little bone meal over plants, it will prevent them eating it for some period. Now, the major factor in that is this, that if you have what is called troubles, you must, and this is what I suggest to everybody concerned with the matter, we want more deer, we want more birds, we want more insects, more butterflies. They've been eradicated. We want them back by millions. They're the constitution of soil, of air, of growth, of understanding, of the happiness of children. You must feed outside your garden, in the lay areas. You must feed and grow plants for the deer. If you grow mulberries near your raspberries, the birds will be so occupied with the mulberries that they won't be interested in the raspberries, they prefer them. And likewise, when you grow sonchus, when you grow senecchio, and all of the plants such as Heracleum that the birds love, they will come and they will eat the seeds. And those are the particular birds, such as all the finches, the bullfinches, the warblers, and particularly the goldfinches. They will all come and also look after the balance of the whole of the insect world. We have no capacity of looking after a balance of the insect world. You either wipe it out with derelict poisoning, And after all, there's no such thing as weed killer. There is only plant killer. It's a complete hallucination. If not plant killer, plant wounder, if you like, soil destroyer. So the great thing is that if you can't totally prevent the entry, grow some stuff outside that the deer love and keep them busy. Does that give you some reasonable answer? Gophers are the utmost ease to control. Now, the gopher is antique. You cannot tell it it's got to go and live somewhere else because it has nothing to do with such a matter. It says, I know before you did. If you want immediate removal, sambucus, which is elderberry, stuffed down their runs, will completely stop them from reusing them. Now, you've got to find your boundaries of where they come in. Also, if you can't find sambucus and don't want to find sambucus, even you can go to the camphor tree and such like. Euphorbias, more than those two, any of the euphorbias grown will begin to stop the gophers from traveling. The Spanish brought the belladonna lily because the gopher ate the simitis of California, that beautiful wild lily of California, and the Spaniards brought all the grapevines, as you know. And the gophers ate the grapevines, and the Spaniards were very angry, as Spaniards can be. They sent back to Europe for the big belladonna lily, which is extremely poisonous, and planted it all in the orchards. That's why you see these pink lilies blooming in July all over the place in orchards and vineyards, and it's very strange. But the Spaniards did it, and of course the gopher thought it was a simitis, or didn't know the difference, or didn't know what a belladonna was, and of course became very, very ill, and had indigestion, and took to hospital. However, the euphorbias are the huge preventative of the travelling of gophers in your garden. There are also endless other methods. You must understand that in a talk and a discussion like this here today, I could hardly nominate you 20 herbs that would bring about the control. But if you wanted or would care to be so diligent as to write me a letter, I would indeed send you an endless list and promise that they would be effective as they would. Snakes, you realize, are very important in this. Snakes are huge controllers of gophers.
What about snails? They don't have a natural enemy.
There are endless interrelationships of planting that will completely control your snail problems. The whole family of Thymus, the whole family of Allium, again the euphorbias, and the interplanting and interrelationships of planting of this matter. The use of, again, livestock. If you have had an outbreak of snail or slug and they've laid eggs all over the place, when your crops are coming to a close, build pens upon those beds and run ducks or geese or chickens. If you don't and can't run ducks, geese or chickens, use live lime as a dressing in the fall, leave it for 3 days upon the soil, and it will eradicate the whole matter. There are endless other answers to it, which are much more efficient, but they're more long-term. Again, any letter to us on such a subject will, I promise you, receive an answer. Proper cultivation of your soils, the keeping of cultivation going, should also keep down, and with a proper procedure of layout of your garden, with these areas of interplantings, will definitely control it. But at no time, I would suggest to you, should you consider having a garden without slugs or snails. I command that if you grew lettuce in the desert, you should have slugs. And if you don't find a slug in your lettuce bed somewhere, you'd better not eat them. Yes, there is. There's considerable open discussion on this subject, such as all types of manures. But generally speaking, the interesting point is that you realize that even Pliny spoke of horse and what you call them animals that use for pulling. Their manures are the weakest and poorest of all. Cat manures and dog manures are essentially not suitable. For slugs? Oh, here, I would imagine, I didn't watch film this time, and I would imagine it's this bone here. It is a fertilization. In many soils that are lacking calcium, the soils of California have any amount of limestone in them, and you don't need lines of chalks. But the calcium of bone meal is missing.
Well, we don't know or understand that planting with food and so on. And that's if you reason not to plant, you just plant. Anyway.
Not at all. The whole system of planting with the boom is as simple as ABC. It is extremely simple. If you get a farmer's almanac, believe it or not, the whole focus of the thing is written for. You just study the inclinations of the moon. There are 12 inclinations in the year. You study your plants a little bit. It takes absolutely no study. I assure you, I am an ignoramus and a nincompoop, and I understand it quite well. Oh, no, I knew when I assure you, it is very easy. Don't imagine that it is difficult or any problems. There are not. It's extremely easy. Look at the sky with the rising moon, and so succeed you'll find the work. Look at the sky when the moon is going down, smaller and smaller, until your teeth, and you won't get any germination.